We're going to get straight to my guest today because he actually has a committee meeting that he's on his way to right after this, but he squeezed us in for a few minutes. He is a lawyer, and he is the representative of Washington's 23rd District. Please welcome to the show, Representative Drew Henson. Drew, how are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great.
Thanks for taking some time to talk to us. We'll get right to it because I know you're on a time crunch here. Washington State, who has been, you guys are working on some amazing things up there. You're working on single-payer healthcare. There's a bill for free college that I know you were a big part of. And specifically what I wanted to talk to you about today, there is a broadband bill in Washington State that I believe you are the author of that too, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
So break it down for me. How extensive is the bill and where is it at as far as progress right now?
Yeah. So if you think about broadband, you have private providers, Comcast, CenturyLink, AT&T, whoever. And then in a majority of states, there aren't any restrictions on the ability of public providers to offer broadband. So counties, public utility districts, ports, whatever. Washington is one of the minority of states that literally has a state law limiting the ability of public entities to offer broadband. I mean, this is absurd, right? Like, as you noted, Washington's a pretty progressive state in a lot of ways, and we've led the country in a lot of ways. And, look, it's not acceptable that we are one of the minority of states that restrict the ability of the public to offer broadband. Because look, what does this pandemic make clear? Presumably everyone figured out that broadband is a basic essential of modern life before this pandemic. But if you didn't, now you know. Right? Because everyone is relying on broadband access for remote school, for remote work. We're doing the entire legislative session remotely. Let me tell you, members drop in and out because they'd have spotty internet access. So it is long past time to lift those restrictions, let public entities in Washington provide broadband as other states have done, and hopefully we get a little competition. The states that do allow unrestricted public broadband have on average lower costs and faster speeds. And that's what we're looking for because, I don't know. The commentary on behalf of this bill has just been overwhelming. I don't think anyone's happy with their broadband access unless there's fiber laid right to their house or something.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, we talk about municipal broadband a lot on this show.
Right.
It's one of the topics we cover a good bit. And you can go to, for everyone listening especially too, you can go to the Institute for Local Self-Reliance and muninetworks.org, and you can find out which states do have some red tape for public broadband development and which states don't. And yeah, when you see Washington State on that list, it does take you back a little. You're surprised. You guys aren't the only state, but you're one of the more surprising ones, especially since one of the earliest efforts for municipal broadband happened in Tacoma, Washington, which you wonder if there's a relation there. Can you speak to that? Is that
so great question? And someone has flagged that as a possibility. I don't know. What I do know is this restriction has been in place for a long time, probably 20 years or so. And people have been trying to lift it for the same amount of time. And the cable companies come beat it back. And that's what they're doing with my bill. You look at my bill, it had a hearing in the House committee. We had over 1,000 people signed in pro on the bill. With just mostly ordinary people who just want to see broadband internet as a basic public service. And then we had the PTA, right? We had the public utility districts. We had the ports. We had the IT director of the Suquamish tribe, one of the sovereign tribes in my district. We had those all lined up pro. And then signed in con, we had the cable companies. So choose your fighter, right? If you're a Democrat, they're one side of this debate you need to be on. And I'm hoping this is the year that we actually persuade people that's right.
So right now, the goal is to lift this red tape to allow more municipal broadband in the state of Washington. Are there plans to go a step further and actually have a statewide high-speed internet for all bill?
So there are a bunch of initiatives in the public broadband area. There are funding initiatives related to laying fiber that candidly I'm not tracking all that closely because they're not my immediate problem. There are digital divide initiatives related to making sure that even if people have access to high-speed internet. They have the devices and they have the tech support that will allow them to use that. That's very important. I'm a co-sponsor of one of those bills. There are other things going on in this space as well, but just like, full disclosure, I chair the Civil Rights and Judiciary Committee. Broadband's not really my world. Like, I got into this because it was super important to my local public utility district, Kitsap PUD. I mean, we're a mixed urban, rural, suburban county. We got a city, we got a commuter suburb, we got, the place where the Costco and the Target is, we got a bunch of farms and small timber operations, and people out here aren't happy with their internet access. And my local PUD wants to offer public internet the way it offers public power and public water. And I was immediately on board for that, particularly when I realized that the cable companies had been successfully beating this back for 20 years. I thought, well, maybe now's the time for that to change. Like, maybe now this is the year we actually get to do something we should have done a couple decades ago.
Well, and I'm a policy guy, not a tech guy, and I feel like maybe you're in the same boat. And it's interesting when you look at the studies that have been done, which are just out in the open. I mean, Harvard University did something in conjunction with the Institute of Local Self-Reliance. 100% of the time, the broadband that the city is offering is better and cheaper than what the big cable companies are offering. Now, that says to any person who just takes the time to look at the information, and you don't have to be a tech expert to put this together, that says that internet infrastructure isn't terribly difficult. It's not some impossible feat. I mean, hell, out in the UK, there were farmers laying cable with their tractors. It's not an impossible thing. It's just when you have these cable companies whose only concern is the bottom line, they're not going to do the best job on the infrastructure because they don't care. Meanwhile, if you're in a city, and you can feel free to use this line, although it's easier for me as a comedian to use than you as a politician. The way I like to tell people, hey, look, whether you're the richest resident, the poorest resident, the mayor, or anything in between, everybody wants their porn to load fast.
How about everyone would like to play Exploding Kittens online at a factory? Yeah, how about that?
You can do that. Yeah, you can do that.
I don't even know if you can play it online. Great game. Probably not a sponsor. Won't mention it in case it breaks your non-com. But anyway, sorry. Yeah. So look, I mean, look in the cities even, right? Like, that's where people are like, well, we're fine. It's a dense area. No, they're not. I mean, you should hear the complaining I'm getting about data caps, about speed, about price, about monopolies per area. I mean, it's just, look, I mean, it's not acceptable, and the status quo is not working, and it has not been working for a couple decades. So yeah, I mean, long past time in every area, rural, urban, suburban. And again, my bill doesn't require the government to offer public broadband. Okay, my bill just lists the restrictions and says if you can make it pencil, we're not going to restrict you as a matter of state law from doing it. I mean, that's got to be the easiest sell in the world. Nope, not to the cable companies. I mean, because are they trying to kill this bill? Holy cow, are they trying to kill this bill? And so, we'll see. I mean, we have bipartisan support for it, which is great. I mean, I want to say, like, I have a Republican number 2 on the bill from Eastern Washington, which is a little bit more rural, and he's fired up. His residents don't have the choices that they want, and he wants them to have more choices. We got it out of committee with bipartisan support. So I'm hopeful, right, that this is the year we got the forces aligned in our favor enough that we can pull this off.
So then what's next for the bill as far as getting it into law, and how can people listening help out?
Yeah, so great question. So the next stop is the House floor. We are optimistic that is going to happen quickly. If people in Washington State wish to contact their representatives and tell them to support the Public Broadband Act, House Bill 1336, the bill we're talking about, that'd be great. I mean, it really would, right? Like that, we need help. Okay, and then it goes over to the Washington State Senate. Similar drill. By all means, go ahead and tell your senators now how much you love this bill, because we're having discussions over there already. But we're going to have another hearing. We'd love to have people come testify. We had some people we lined up to testify that the ports and the PUDs helped us find. I mean, just this gripping testimony, like Pacific County out on the coast, a bunch of timber, hard to get internet signals. They would love to have this ability. They'd love to have this ability. But just hearing from, we heard from a mom in Spokane who has to drive someplace so that her kids can get enough of a Wi-Fi signal to do their homework. We'd love to hear from more people in the Senate. And so, we'd love people to join us in the Senate when the bill gets over there, and then contact your representatives and your senators. And, look, we need, honestly, y'all, I mean, this has to be a grassroots one, right? I mean, this is one where we need broad grassroots support of people telling their legislators, this is a priority, this is urgent, this is something you have to do, because that's, this is a hard fight, right? There's a reason people haven't been able to do this for 20 years. But I'm hopeful that with the right grassroots bottom-up momentum, we can pull this off.
Where can people go to get involved? I mean, you mentioned some of the public hearings and stuff like that. Is there a place people can go specifically to make sure they're abreast of when that's going on and how they can get involved or submit?
Yeah, so there are. So I'm on a state computer, which sort of limits what I can talk about right now. But there is a state public facing website, which I'm going to find, hopefully without killing you. Give me a second. The state's public-facing website is app.leg.wa.gov maybe bill info. And then you just type in the number 1336, and then you can see exactly where it is in the process. And critically, when it's scheduled for a hearing, you'll see the place where you can submit a comment. You can testify, submit something at the hearing, and you can also submit a comment on the bill. And you can also, if you're a Washington State resident, there's something on that same site that allows you to find your district and then contact your legislator. You can also go through those. And frankly, sir, for your listeners, great tool to learn how to use, right? I mean, this is how you find out what bills are doing as they go through it's what I use, app.leg.wa.gov. We don't have any more special info than that about where a bill is in committee or so on.
Okay, great. Yeah, and we'll make sure we include those in the notes later and stuff like that. So thank you for your work on this bill, and hopefully it gets through, and then hopefully it leads to even bigger and better things in terms of public broadband. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make